The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
The Boston bomber, it involved two men, the two Chechens that we caught and killed on Friday. But there are more involved than just those two. But make no mistake, those are the guys that built the bombs. They were there, they built them, but there were others involved. And the Saudi involvement is critical. If you really want, if you are like me, I walked out of my grocery store here in my local town, just outside of Dallas, and I saw the flag at half-staff, and I said, I've had it. I have had it. Enough is enough. I'm tired of the lie. I'm tired of living this way. I'm tired of seeing my flag of my country at half-staff because we're fighting a foe that we won't even admit. We can't ever identify. No one is actually really looking for anything. You are being fed just enough to make you feel safe, but you are not safe, and I'll explain exactly why within the next 4 minutes. But I laid out the case, and it is up on the Blaze right now. The story is Beck breaks exclusive information on Saudi national allegedly connected to the Boston bombings. I will tell you that there's no alleging this at all. We have the documents. The documents, it is an event file, 221, section 221 3B. Terrorism charges, Boston Marathon bombing. That doesn't sound like somebody's alleging. That is what the government charged. It was then, 2 days later, erased. This Saudi national, who is definitely not anything but a Cub Scout from Saudi Arabia. By the way, he was here on a student visa, supposed to be in Findlay, Ohio. Exclusive information from the Blaze. Supposed to be in Findlay, Ohio. The press just didn't want to do any of their homework. They just somehow or another believed the government when the government said, no, he's just a good guy. No, don't know anything about him. What? Stop looking at him, you racist. They didn't decide to look into him. We found out he was here on a visa, a student visa. He was supposed to be going to school in Findlay, Ohio. Why did he have an apartment not in Findlay, Ohio, but in Boston, Massachusetts? That seems like a hell of a commute, doesn't it? But nobody wants to look into it. Why would this government, now for the second time that we know of, why would they hide the connections to Saudi Arabia? The first time, George Bush did it. And it took 3 years for this story to get out, but I'm telling you, gang, we don't have 3 years this time. This is related to the Benghazi story as well. We do not survive if we continue to play this game and we allow the media and our government to play this game. And this is going to be damn near impossible to beat them on. But let me explain why it's happening. Al-Qaeda was a terrorist organization that the kingdom loved for a while, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Then they turned against the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. That's why they're in Yemen. Remember, Osama bin Laden, his family was a big construction family. Loads, very wealthy, loads of money in Saudi Arabia. He left the country and really became the world's #1 terrorist. But he was, if you remember right, he hated Saudi Arabia. Thus comes the United States of America to the aid of the Saudis. We used Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda to help destroy the Russians. And we learned a lot in that conflict. We kind of liked that. But Saudi Arabia liked it too because, remember, that's their enemy. They don't want Al-Qaeda in Saudi Arabia either. And so they like it if we're going after them. And so we've made an agreement. This is my speculation. We've made an agreement. All the terrorists, the really nasty, much worse than Al-Qaeda, Wahhabism is really bad. Saudi Arabia is cool with that because they haven't turned on Saudi Arabia. So the Wahhabis are in Saudi Arabia, and no one, don't you dare look into Wahhabism. What, are you a conspiracy theorist? Don't you dare look into somebody who talks about a caliphate with the Muslim Brotherhood. What, are you a conspiracy theorist? Because those guys are from Saudi Arabia. Now, people will say Saudi Arabia banned the Muslim Brotherhood. I got news for you. The House of Saud bans every political organization. The House of Saud has no competition. So yes, did they ban them? Yes, they ban everybody in Saudi Arabia. But Saudi Arabia keeps...
Egypt banned them too.
I know.
Look what good that did.
Saudi Arabia keeps Iran in check. It keeps Israel in place because that's our deal. We'll help you with Al-Qaeda, you help us there. This is why when someone says there's a caliphate, you're mocked and ridiculed. When anybody says there are Wahhabist schools in our country that are teaching Saudi Arabian Wahhabi principles and values, which are deadly poison to us, you are immediately deemed a racist. And it's why the State Department protects those schools in places like Virginia. You cannot get any of the curriculum from a Saudi-paid-for Wahhabi school in our own country. Why? Because they're keeping the really nasty ones out of our country, we believe. We're the biggest dupes in the world. What's happening here is we're having a cultural jihad happening in our own country. They have the Wahhabi schools, they have the caliphate, they have the Islamic jihadist here in our country, and we are not looking for them because our press is lazy or they're in bed with this administration. You notice they said a little bit last time around, but the progressives in the Republican Party shut everybody down on that. Now it's the progressives on both sides because they know, and their hands are so covered in blood. Republicans and Democrats, their hands are covered in blood. When you find out the truth, and I'm asking you now, do your own homework. Be very, very careful. Do not go to conspiracy websites, please. Just because they have some of this information doesn't mean all of the information is right. We are being very careful because we know that if you get this one wrong, it's just as bad as not knowing it at all. It's extraordinarily dangerous information. The press is lazy or in bed. The power brokers in this country will tell you if you destabilize Saudi Arabia, then the energy thing, then the entire Middle East goes to hell in a handbasket. So you can convince the press through the Council of Foreign Relations, you can't destabilize this. This is the way it is and you got to leave it. The banks, if any bank was actually honest with you, the banks would tell you they sat at the table with Saudis and said, we need your help. We need your help. We need a bailout. We need you to help fund us, please, because we're about to go on. And the Saudis changing their sunglasses every 10 minutes said, well, I maybe I can help you. You crazy person. And I mean the banks. What are we doing getting into bed with those guys? Saudis are on our investments. Saudis are on the board of our directors all over the country. And when they don't infiltrate that way, they infiltrate through CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood. And that's the way it works. And if they'll cozy up, they'll bribe, they will help with money when you really need money. Of course, I'm going to need some things for you. They'll make the really important oil thing. We don't need your oil. They'll get onto the board of directors and say, hey, guys, you know me, I'm very reasonable. And if that doesn't work, they'll take CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood and they will bully the crap out of you. That's what's happening. Now, why is this important for you? Because every time there is a terrorist strike, more restrictions go on you. And they get no more. Nobody's looking at the Wahhabi schools. Nobody is looking for the Saudi connections to this. We're now looking at Chechens. They were involved. But who trained them? Why is the Saudi on the plane if he's not gone already? As they're talking about regulating your gunpowder now and your guns, while they are taking this Chechen who is no longer a Chechen but an American citizen, and they're saying, we're not going to Mirandize you, while they're violating those rights, they are setting a precedent. This isn't about his rights. This is about your right. They are setting the precedent that we did it with him. What makes you so special and so unique? There is growing power every day that goes by. More restrictions on you, less on them. Growing power for CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood. Dallas, Texas, the vice president of CARE from Texas just went over and is now running the Muslim Brotherhood, and I'm sorry to be so frank, terrorist organization in Syria. But we won't say anything about that because we've deemed that a freedom-fighting organization. Are they wearing uniforms? Because if they're not wearing uniforms, sure sounds like a terrorist organization. Maybe this week I'll start telling you exactly what that terrorist organization is involved in Syria. I'm not making kissy face with the Syrian government is brutal, awful, but we are in bed with the Muslim Brotherhood, and this is a terrorist organization. And the point of this is a guy and his little school teacher wife lived here in Dallas, Texas for years and years. He was wearing a suit every day, and now he is plotting terrorist activity, and he was here while we were running guns over to that same organization from Benghazi. Why does this make a difference to you? Because as the more restrictions are put on you and less on them, and your rights are going away, and there's growing power for CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood, what are they teaching your kids in school? What are they teaching them about Christianity? What are they teaching them about Islam? What are they teaching them about CARE? Who is responsible for some of the things that are being taught? Is it CARE? Is it the Muslim Brotherhood? Is there any agenda there? You don't know. I don't know. It didn't go through any vetting. It's just Common Core. Put it in. Meanwhile, our borders are wide open. Our borders are wide open. Ask anybody who lives in a border state. Ask anybody from the Border Patrol. Ask them about other than Mexicans, OTM, other than Mexicans. Ask them about that. We find prayer rugs. We find jihad brochures. And nobody says a word. Why? Why? Because most of it is funded by Saudi Arabia. And meanwhile, our civilization jihad continues. The bombers in Boston were 2 Chechens. The Saudi involvement is critical. You are being fed just enough to feel safe, but you are anything but that. Because your government has become a lapdog for a king of the desert. And because of people who are on the board of directors, people who are financiers, because of the power brokers that they're afraid of CARE, Muslim Brotherhood, because of the cash coming from the banks, because of the energy, because you just don't understand global politics, whatever the excuse is, because of laziness, because of politics, the media fails you every step of the way. May I suggest that you call your congressman and ask them, are you demanding the answers from the government and Janet Napolitano right now? Are you asking where is this Saudi national? If he has been allowed to fly home, why? This is not a conspiracy theory. We have the documentation. You want to play ball with us, Washington? Come on, bring it on, play ball. We are not afraid. We know exactly who we're dealing with. We are dealing with, quite honestly, principalities and power beyond our imagination. But we know who we have on our side. Bring it on.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.